Today I want to talk about a topic that it's been on my mind for a while, and it's in looking at the American Christian church and looking at the lives of comfort and ease that we live. What are the effects of that on our actions and our words? Because we've gotten to a point where we're so comfortable that our Sundays look radically different from the underground church in China or the Middle East, or even how the apostles and followers of Christ acted back in the biblical times. We find that when we look at the American church, we see Sundays are filled with many times complaining about worship and how we think worship should be done in a different way, or not enjoying how a pastor speaks, and we find people bouncing around from church to church and finding flaws in all of them and just never really connecting. But if we look at where Christianity is thriving in the underground churches in China and the Middle East, we see a radically different picture. We see hundreds of people meeting in very small rooms or the basements of houses or abandoned buildings where they'll go anytime, or 3 a.m, or any day of the week, anytime they can get a chance just to worship God. And that doesn't fit with the way we know church. Or if we look back biblically at the time of where Nero was emperor, we see Nero was burning Christians alive at the stake at nighttime to light fires so that he could have light for his parties. Or the author of Hebrews writes in chapter 11 that there are followers of Christ who were mocked and stoned and tortured and sold in two for their faith. And Christ says himself in Mark 13 that because of Christ we will be hated. And when we look at the underground church today and the biblical church, that doesn't fit with the American church, because we don't really enjoy persecution, and if it comes up we like to sit back and not have that target put on our back because of the comfort that we live in. But you see, with that comfort we live in, we miss the power of God. Now, it's the same power of God that in Hebrews 11, those who were tortured for Christ, it says they refused to leave. They didn't even want to leave being tortured because of the power of God was being shown through them in their situation. And we see the same in the underground church of people who were beaten and imprisoned and tortured and then sent back and say, if you do this again, we'll kill you. And they refuse to give up the name of Christ and will continually worship him despite that. And that's the power we miss when we sit back in the comfortability of ourselves and in our situations in our little church bubbles. And it's something we don't understand, but we think we realize we're supposed to look different because of our name, that we're called Christians, so we're different. But we're supposed to look different because of God's work in us and through us. That we're not supposed to fit in, but rather we're supposed to stand out by the power of God no matter what the cost is. Because then when that happens, when we start standing out by the power of God no matter what the cost, then we start to see God really work through us, and we can start changing the people in the generation that we live in around us in our communities. So the question is, are we fitting in, or are we standing out? Are we living a life of comfort and ease, or are we living the life Christ has called us to and following him no matter what the cost?